Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you for this great forum. I would like to start by reminding all of us that among the many things that we celebrate, we are also celebrating the 10 years since we started working on the issue of efficiency and cost reduction. It was in 2005 that the World Bank and the Committee on Payment and Settlement Systems, that is the standard setter in the area of payment systems, located at the Bank for International Settlements, convened a task force of central banks and multilateral organizations to discuss the issue of cost reduction efficiency. And as you remember, many of you participated also in the discussion that followed the work of the task force. We had several events where we could get feedback from the market, from other authorities. And we published the principles, the general principles for international remittance services. And 10 years later, I mean, the principles were published in 2007. We should say that the topics identified are still relevant. We have discussed already this morning and in the afternoon the importance of issues such as transparency and consumer protection, governance and risk management, the payment system infrastructure, competition, and legal and regulatory framework. So the guiding principles, the framework we have created has served us well. And everybody has talked about the cost, but as my team is the one that produces the data, I take also my responsibility for that. And we have already said that although we haven't reached the target of 5% in terms of the global average of sending money, it is still an achievement that the cost, the global average has gone down, currently below 8%. And money has been saved, thanks to all of you, in particular the remittance service providers, but also the authorities that have facilitated this movement. I think when you look at the different corridors, I think it's very clear that if the curve is shifting to the left. As of Q2 of this year, we published just a couple of days ago the new data that are available at our World Bank stand outside, and of course also on the internet. There was no corridor with an average of over 20% for the first time. And 75% of the corridors are below 10%. So really the curve is moving. Of course, we would like to see it moving even faster, but I think it is very important that we continue to note that progress is being made. So this is in terms of my introductory remarks. Today we're going to discuss a little bit what has helped us move this curve to the left. And I'm very privileged to have three distinguished colleagues that have come to share with us the experience in their jurisdictions and also the experience of their institutions. I'm also very pleased to have gender equality in this panel for once. So I will start by introducing Corinne Brunon-Meunier, who is the Deputy Director of the Development and Global Public Goods Directorate at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France. Deputy Governor Nazneen Sultana from the Bangladesh Bank, the Central Bank of Bangladesh. And last but not least, my good friend Francisco Tur, known as Paco, who is at the European Central Bank and an old friend of all of us and has participated in the discussions that brought to the production of the general principles. So we have organized our panel in sort of like 3 rounds. And we also want to give sufficient time to you to comment, ask questions, but also make suggestions, share your experience with us. The first round will be about experience that our colleagues will bring from their jurisdictions, and then we will discuss a couple of topics. We will ask Paco to start because he brings, of course, the experience of Europe, and then we will, Corinne and then Sultana will follow. Paco.
Thank you very much, Massimo. It's my pleasure being here. I left Frankfurt this morning. I was sunny, and I arrived to Milano, and it was raining. So something is going wrong, I think. But anyhow, you asked me not to be too technical, and I will try not to be technical. Representing a central bank where we are dealing with technical issues is quite a challenge, but I will do all my best. What I will explain you a little bit is what we have been doing in Europe to make payments more efficient. One of the previous speakers was talking about efficiency of the infrastructures, efficiency of the instruments. This is what we have been doing in Europe for making payments, cashless payments, more efficient. So in 2001, the euro was established. We had a single currency, but still for making cashless payments, the market was extremely fragmented. In fact, was extremely fragmented? No, was completely fragmented. So if you wanted to make a transaction from Madrid to Lisbon, was far more expensive and far more efficient, more efficient than a transaction from Madrid to Barcelona or from Frankfurt to Berlin. So a former board member of mine, Tommaso Padoa-Schioppa, which unfortunately died a few years ago, was the one starting the SEPA, saying, we don't have a payment infrastructure in line with the single currency. So we established very clear objectives, and the clear objective was that with a single account, you could make payments throughout Europe as efficient as you were doing within a member state. How we went there, how we got there? How we got there is by implementing common standards. What do I mean by common standards? Is that we are all speaking the same language, that a payment service provider in Spain has the same interface with a clearinghouse than a payment service provider in Germany. This was one of the main issues, to establish the same standards, the same language. We were all speaking the same language. This was done by the industry. This was done by the industry, by the payment services providers represented by what they call the European Payments Council. So I have to say, very good work by the industry. But this was not enough. We needed common business rules. What do I mean with business rules? As in Europe, we all drive in Europe. Almost all Europe, we all drive on the right side. On the payments, we also need to drive on the right side, as one example. And these are what I call the business rules, by which everyone, apart of using the same language, they were acting on the same way. So this was also very important, and this was also built by the market. But then it was a third point, which was also very important, which was legislation. So when the market delivered all those common standards, they said, we need to have harmonized legislation throughout all Europe. And this is where the regulator played an important role, by harmonizing the regulation in the different member states. This has been crucial. So on the top of this, we needed to make sure that the demands of the demand side, so that the consumers, the merchants, what they needed was going to be taken into account. And this has been addressed by what we call the Euro Retail Payments Board, chaired by my board member, in which we put together the needs of the demand side and the needs of the supply side. So I think that in Europe, We are progressing. We have common standards, we have common legislation, we have business rules, and now we are trying to get still harmonization in innovation and other type of things. What is my message for global? I think that we should go in the same direction. I think that for global, we should go in the same direction to implement common standards. Authorities have an important role in harmonizing legislation and also to have common business rules. I think that this is what I want to pass to the audience here. What we have been in Europe can be easily, can also be a kind of guidance for the rest of the world, because we have been confronted with the same problem in Europe that we have at global level on inefficient and difficult to make payments. I had 3 minutes, Massimo. I hope that it was not too long.
No, thank you, Paco. So now Corinne will share the experience of France. I don't know if you need to use this.
No, thank you. I think I will just talk. I do have some slides, but I will share them afterwards. Okay. Let me first of all thank IFAD for the organization of this international conference. It's really very important to work at the same time on the cost of transfer, but also on the way to maximize their impacts on developments. And you will not be surprised that I will talk a lot about that, being from a directorate dealing with development. And also I think it's a real opportunity to show that the question of migration can be also seen as with a positive aspect. We all know what kind of tragedy are evolving those days. So I think from this forum should also positive solution and good news come out of this forum. That would be very, very important. I will try very briefly to give you some insight of what we are doing in France at the level of public services. First of all, I want to share with you the fact that we have adopted a law in France last year, the first law we ever had on development. This is a broad law about the orientation on aid on development. And inside this law, we have specifically cited and aimed the migrant and what they are doing for the development of their countries. This is very important that it is enshrined in a law, because then it means that all of the public authorities in France should work in order to help the migrants to help to the development of their countries. And of course, the remittances they send to their countries of origin is of utmost importance. So drawing on this law, we have set a group of ministries working on the subject of remittances. And of course, we associate Banque de France and also our main aid operator, Agence Française de Développement. Because with all this working force inside the French authorities, then we are preparing together our commitment, our participation to fora, to international initiative. And for example, we have been working all together to participate to the initiative that some of you know, of course, of the World Bank with one of our city, Ville de Montreuil. And this project is called Greenback Remittances Champion Cities. And I think that will be presented in 2 days. And we have been very glad to participate to this project. Myself, I attended in last October the restitution of the project with the migrants of the Ville de Montreuil. And I think that there was a great interest, and a lot of migrants of this city were there, but not only them, also all the members of diaspora. So what I want to share with you is that apart from big principles and laws, we are also developing very concrete initiatives. And also, as you may know, France, as other countries here, are member of the pilot group on innovative financing, which is quite important to have that in mind, to maximize what we can do with remittances. We are also members of 2 groups, which are led by the African Bank of Development and the World Bank. One is Making Finance Work for Africa, and the other is Global Remittances Working Group. And what we are doing with right now in France is, of course, taking initiative in order to lower cost of transfers, but also, and that is the main point I want to share with you today, mainly we want to draw those remittances to productive investment productive investment that can really make a difference in the economy of countries of origin. And of course, with the aim to reduce poverty. And we have very active diasporas in France. They are very organized. We work very closely with them, and particularly from Senegal, Mali, Morocco, Cameroon. And so we are really trying to enhance what we are doing. Some data has already been given by the previous speakers, and you have seen that from France we have roughly 9 billion euros outflowing from our countries, and this data and this volume of transfer has increased by 10% since the last 3 years. So this is a very, very important volume. And the third of this volume is going to 3 main countries of North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. And also, these transfers are also going to Francophone country. Hopefully, we have also fora with French-speaking people, because this is very important also to have this in mind, because Francophonie is also a way to share experiences. And so we have a lot of those remittances going to Francophone countries and, of course, to French-speaking African countries. For the cost of transfer, we are struggling like other countries to lower the cost. We, in France now, are averaging the European average. It's 7.7%. It's still too much. We do realize that. And as our Turkish colleague has said, we are also trying to strengthen our national plan. And that we will talk about that later on. But this is a very constructive initiative of the G20 to have those national plans, and we will share them at the end of the year. And of course, inside the G20, France will take all her place in order to carry on her commitments on that issue. Maybe I will, for the time being, I will just summarize in 3 words what we are trying to do in France with all the stakeholders. And we are trying to facilitate the transfer. We are trying to maximize their impacts, and also to evaluate the flows on transfer. Evaluation is very important because it means we have to be able to harmonize data, but we have also to do what we are doing now, sharing experiences, and also do some sort of intellectual work to better understand what we can do with remittances. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corinne. Deputy Governor, you bring the experience of the receiving country, and there is a lot that can be done on the receiving side to facilitate these flows.
Thank you, Moderator. Massimo Cirasino, and my fellow panelists and distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and warm greetings to you all. I would like to share Bangladesh experience in this issue, and you all know that the remittance from migrant workers create one of the most important sources of foreign exchange and is playing a vital role in economic activities of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is one of the core suppliers of migrant workers who are spread almost all over the world, and one of the top 10 remittance receiving countries. Recently in 2014, the 8th as per World Bank report. The inflow of remittance has increased gradually in recent years from 3.37 billion in financial year 2003-04 to 14.23 billion in 2013-14. That is fourfold. Which is over 11% of gross domestic product, and remittances contribute to economic growth through their positive impact on consumption, savings, and investment. And Bangladesh Bank, as a regulatory body, reforms many things, many policy. We know that cross-border payments are normally executed by banks worldwide to facilitate remittances through alternative channels like exchange house, MTOs. Bangladesh Bank formulated policy guideline in 2007 for banks to establish drawing arrangement with overseas exchange houses. Also, Bangladesh Bank encouraged local banks to establish own exchange houses abroad as well. Presently, our bank actively are working with around 980 overseas exchange houses. Moreover, our banks have also opened their own exchange houses at different strategic locations of the world. The number is 32 now operating worldwide. And Bangladesh Bank massive financial inclusion works began in Bangladesh in 2010. As a part of this program, different visible achievements are Bangladesh Electronic Fund Transfer Network, Bangladesh Automatic Clearing House, online banking, mobile banking, agent banking, 10 Taka account for farmers, poor peoples, and school banking, etc., which help delivery of remittances. I would like to mention here that, for example, mobile financial services are very recent innovation of Bangladesh Bank, which brought a new revolution in electronic transaction of inland remittances. The number of accounts under mobile banking has doubled in 1 year to reach the figure of 25.86 million out of about 100 million adult people of Bangladesh. So 1/4 people are availing mobile banking. And 19 banks have been servicing this program through their 543,000 agents, and 9 more banks to come with MFS. The working people of urban areas can now remit their income to their family members living in rural areas through the system of mobile banking, which records transaction of about $47 million per day, which is growing fast. The inland remittance services also facilitate delivery of wage remittances channeled by banks. Along with mobile financial services, Bangladesh Bank has permitted post offices. Post offices are stay in the rural areas all over the country, and microcredit financial institutions to run inward remittances. Banks are now using mobile financial services, branch network of MFIs, and post offices as the sub-agent for remittance distribution. Remittances are also distributed through agent banking service like Singer, Bangladesh Limited outlets. All these payment facilities have virtually eliminated the informal remittance inflows. Furthermore, I especially want to mention here that Bangladesh Bank has established a separate department titled Financial Integrity and Customer Protections Department to handle any complaint and suggestions by the customers or any stakeholders at home and abroad to ensure the smooth services. There is a hotline 16236 to address the customers' complaints, if any, and non-resident Bangladeshi complaints are given highest priority. Bangladesh is a careful watch over the banking operation, including all foreign exchange transactions through real-time online reporting system. Under the system, Bangladesh Bank closely monitor inward and outward remittances flows. This also ensures proper delivery of inward remittances to ultimate beneficiaries. The role of remittance in the economies of manpower sending countries like Bangladesh is very important. It is viewed as a very stable source of foreign exchange. The foreign exchange receipt helped Bangladesh to bridge the gap of trade balance, improve its balance of payment position, of strengthening foreign exchange reserves. At the micro level, remittance contribute towards increasing the income of receiving households with concurrent effect on the standard of living, while depending upon consumption patterns, they have been known to increase the level of savings, which is a source of capital. Let me conclude with the words that we are Bangladesh Bank, Bangladesh are giving proper attention to this issue for further increase in foreign reserves, and national savings and investments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now, equipped with the knowledge of the three jurisdictions, we can dig a little bit deeper into a couple of topics. I think both Paco and the Deputy Governor have talked about the importance of standards and also the importance of consistent regulation in order to open up the market. Of course, it is not easy to harmonize legislation, regulation, both internationally, but I would say even at the country level. There are often conflicting objectives of authorities, and it is difficult to find, let's say, an harmonized set of regulation. So I would like to ask the panelists to elaborate on some of these challenges. Maybe I will start again with Paco, because I'm sure that at the European level, there is a lot of experience of harmonizing regulation. And then I will ask the two ladies also to step in with their views on that. Paco?
Okay, no, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Massimo. I found very interesting the interventions before. I have to say that I really believe what we are doing here. I think that is very important, the forum, because at the end what we need to make is things more efficient and facilitate all these remittances. And coming back to the regulatory intervention, in Europe we have been dealing with two aspects. Harmonization, as you say, Massimo, harmonization is tricky. Because why is tricky? Because I can tell you, everyone thinks that they have the best regulation. Everyone thinks that they have the best regulation. This happens in Europe. So at the end, it's a compromise. But it's very important, because at the end, every stakeholder needs to understand the rule of the game. If you don't have the rule of the game is different in one country or another, then you got a problem. This is quite important. And in fact, what I see, what we can see, we are talking often today about innovation. You have not, innovation brings also international players, and international players made the necessity of this harmonization even more important. What in Europe their legislation brought was harmonization and brought competition, which I think that is also important. I think that the banks in Europe, majority of people is banked, more in Central Europe. but I have to say not in the whole European Union. But at the end, it's very important that also you have new players entering into the payments business. And this is what the legislation in Europe has done. The Payment Services Directive, I promised that I was not going to be very technical, but I have to mention this. The Payment Services Directive brings a new animal, which is payment institutions, which compete with banks, with credit institutions in providing payment services. Banks provide more services than only payment services, which means that those new animals should be confronted with less regulation than others for the business they are doing. This is quite clear. So this is what in Europe the regulator has done, has been launching the Payment Services Directive and coming with these new payment institutions. I see that often we are speaking about non-banks. We have to be careful because I have sympathies of having players entering the market, competing with the incumbents, but I think that it's very important that those new players are regulated. And this, I think, that we have been doing in Europe by regulating these new incumbents. Then competition. Let me tell you that in Europe, thanks to the different regulations, the price has been going down. I have before to make a transaction from Madrid to Helsinki could cost up to 15 euros, 20 euros, 30 euros. Now we are at a level that's far below 1 euro, even zero, very often, where a payment from Madrid to Helsinki costs the same that a payment for Madrid to Barcelona. I think that this is also very important. So the cost of making payments has reduced. Now we are in a debate in Europe, and I read it often in the newspaper, so it's not the debate that I have launched it myself. Is payments good business for the banks? Maybe not, but it's a way of remaining in the business, to keep contact with the customers. So I think that what I want to say that in Europe, what we have been aiming, or the regulator has aimed, is to get competition and harmonization. And this has been crucial to get where we are now after 14, 15 years of long way.
Thank you, Paco.
Thank you,
I don't know if Corinne, or you want to add?
Okay, so before talking about regulation, because as a member of EU, of course, France is in the end of the European institutions. Let me maybe remind a small thing. The decrease of the cost is also a question of the way people are playing the game of competition. And for that, as other countries, we have put in place a website in order for consumers to compare the price of the different institutions able to do their transaction. And from what we can say, the consultation of this website has indeed led to a decrease of the cost, because now in France, the diasporas using the website, which has been accredited by the World Bank, the diaspora is really using a lot this website. The monthly visit is increasing, and so we are sure that the competition are really doing their effect, and that is very, very important, because and of course this website creates a sort of environment of transparency, knowledge, because the problem is for consumers is also to better understand what is the transfer about, about commission, exchange rate exchanges, etc., etc. So a part of comparing the prices, this website is also increasing the knowledge of the, the average consumer. So this is, of course, very, very important. As for the regulation, of course, we must work about the harmonization of the legal framework, and a lot of work has been done inside EU, and I will not go on that. But again, I think we should develop new tools, not only this website, but also new tools to harmonize the information of the consumer. What do we say to the consumer? How do the institutions like MTOs, banks, etc., how do they inform the consumers? Do they put on their information sheet the same data, the same information? And that is very important. Why are we saying that? Because we have returned by our own diasporas. They want to be able, not only on the website, but with each institution, at least to have the same basic and major information. And because the point is, they want to be sure of what they are doing. They want to be secure. And this is the only way to transform the informal transfer to formal transfer. And also, something has been said about legislation, regulatory framework this morning. There is a tension between, of course, the will to have a free market, because this is the way to do things, to enhance competition, and at the other way and at the other time to have also regulation, because of course that has been said. We have also to have in mind illicit transfers, like fostering terrorism or money laundering. So we, as a public authority, have to find a balance between a free market but also some kind of regulation, because unfortunately we have also to be aware of that. And but there is a lot of way for public authorities to try to facilitate the transfer. And of course, one way to do that is also to have in mind the new actors, like the microfinance institutions, and also the new technology, like mobile phone, etc. I know that in some African countries, the use of mobile phones is really ahead, and it's true that in France we are trying to keep up the pace and to think about our own regulation with these new tools, because this is all very new. It goes very fast, and we have also to be sure that the providers of services do the right things at the right moment. So there is a lot ongoing, and again, we are very open to share experiences. Thank you.
Thank you. Nazneen, do you want to add to that?
Bangladesh is a remittance receiving country. So Bangladesh is a country of surplus population, 160 million. To implement development work and conduct regular activities, we don't need to import manpower. However, we allow technically expatriates to work in our country, and under work permit issued. Expatriates working in Bangladesh are allowed to maintain bank account locally. The foreign exchange regulation allow expatriates to repatriate their current income up to 75% to their home country. They are also allowed to repatriate personal savings while leaving the country after expiry the work permit employment contract. The transactions are conducted through their bank account. But banking services for wage remittances, especially small wage remittances, are not cost effective for low wage earning workers. In this case, exchange house money transfer operators are providing remittance services to expatriate workers in developed countries at reasonable cost. So exchange houses, MTOs are working as substitute to banking services. The economy of remittance receiving countries like ours is very much dependent on wage remittances to meet external liability for patronizing our development works. Therefore, service of exchange house and MTOs are very important for us until alternative window is found. The cost of services provided by bank is not reasonable for wage remitters, I say. So service of exchange house MTOs has become widely accepted through their dependence is on, though their dependence is on bank for final settlement. To further facilitate cross-border remittance, regulatory frameworks at cross countries need coordinated harmonization. I have some suggestion. Transaction nature of exchange house MTOs in different countries need to be identical. Only wage remittances services should be allowed to exchange house MTOs. No business remittance should be allowed. If business service is allowed, demarcation line need to be established because small wage remittances not need too much know your customer or the strengthening different things. So it must be demarcation. And if business services and uniform reporting system should be introduced for their transaction to supervise by regulator or licensing authorities. And these are my.
Thank you for very practical suggestions. So this morning we have heard a lot about the importance of remittances and the developmental impact of remittances. I would like to ask the panel to maybe share some experiences of this link between remittances and development, which is actually the title of the forum. And also what role the government could play in this context. And this time I would like to start with Corinne.
Thank you very much. But first of all, as we had said between us, the role of remittances for development will be effective if remittances can really flow throughout financial institutions. So again, I will be modest because yes, we have experiences in France with partners, African partners, on to maximize the impacts of development. But we are well aware that the so-called market on remittances is the main and first step in order to have those flows going to development. How can we do that? Of course, the volumes of remittances are really high. I will not repeat the data given this morning, but they are very important. And for Africa in particular, you have seen the slide showing that outflowing remittances from France are mainly directed to Africa. So remittances for development in Africa is really important, not only because there is a direct support of the families, but also more and more everyone is working on how to sustain the economy. And the objective we are trying to work on is to go beyond the 20% of remittances which are aimed directly to investments. And inside those 20% of remittances going to economy, it's including housing. So you can see that in fact, for the time being, remittances is not really directed to investment. And why is it so? Because first of all, people want to be sure that their money is really helpful to their families, which is normal. But even if they have a sort of a project, they want to be sure that it will benefit their communities in their countries of origin. So having said that, we have experienced some project which show it's very complicated. I mean, behind principle and big talks, there is a reality. How do you connect people? And this is very difficult because, first of all, you have to associate a lot of people. You have to associate, of course, the people themselves who send money, the financial institution, but when you are in the country of origin, you have also to associate the economical authorities, national, but mainly local authorities. And that is, it's a big word. We have been also trying to really understand how it works. And for that, we have developed with the African Bank of Development and also our agency a specific study, which is called, I have the title in French, it means reducing the cost of transfer of migrants and maximizing their impacts of development, tools and financial products for the Maghreb and the zone franc zone. And from that study and from a lot of workshops we had in France, Senegal, Morocco, Comoros, Cameroon and Tunisia, we were able to really refine the proposal to make. Because what is at stake? Not only the transfer, the facilitation, but with the remittances, what kind of new financial products can we really put in place in order to facilitate the direction of remittances to economical projects? And of course, this is quite positive because a lot of actors and notably banks are now interested. Someone said, is it profitable for banks? Because, you know, it's a new market in a way. And yes, what we are experiencing with banks in France, in those countries, is a real interest. And now we are developing what we call bi-bancarisation, which is, I'm not an expert on that, but it's for banks of those countries, which are of country of origin, which are not part of the EU, the possibility to offer products they are offering in their country to the migrant in France. You see, it's a real progress because, of course, some people will object and say, yes, but what about the competition? Are you not distorting the competition? No, because they are addressing another part of the population inside France, for example, because the products proposed in the countries of origin normally have lower rates, you know, that kind of thing. And they can, and you can, for example, have a loan with a small amount, lower rates. But that will be a tool for the people sending remittances to associate themselves to projects. So we are currently working on that, and so we can really maximize the impacts of migrants. But you must realize that apart from the cost and volume and flows of remittances, there is an all enabling environment. And for that, we are also developing with our Agency of Development, Agence Française de Développement, very specific tools to address, for example, projects for SMEs, creation of SMEs in countries of origin with remittances. And so we are also putting in place, for example, with Senegal, but also in the framework of a specific program, PASEM, which is the creation of enterprises in Mediterranean. We are putting in place new tools for those little SMEs to know how to get loans, to maximize what they will do with remittances. But also we have workshop in order to enhance human capacity, human capabilities, because when you create SMEs, and so you create jobs, you need to know more about the market, about the financial institution. And so you see what we are doing with the PASEM program, and also what we are currently doing with Senegal is really to create a package on all those issues. Maybe I will.
Thank you. So, Paco, do you want to add? Of course, central banks are not necessarily known to be, let's say, the institution in charge of development, but you can probably, based on your experience, add a few thoughts.
Yeah, I was thinking about there are prerequisites to facilitate remittances. Price transparency, Massimo, your institution is doing a very good job on this, and this is very clear. What can we provide ourselves from a central banking environment? Again, improving the infrastructure. I was taking very good note of what Ms. Meunier was saying. She was saying new financial products, to promote new financial products, which I fully agree with you. But for this, you need to have an infrastructure that facilitates the communication between these financial products. Here, central banks can play a very important role. And I like the example, banks in origin to provide services in France. Very good, it's a brilliant idea. Again, you need infrastructures in place, and here the central bank, your colleagues of Banque de France with whom you are in cooperation, will have to play a very important role. You were mentioning before the CPSS, which is now the CPMI, the Committee of Payment and Market Infrastructures in Basel. It's a committee where you have central banks around the world trying to make payments, to develop standards in the field of securities and payments. Just recently, a working group has been established on retail payments, and we are discussing those issues. We are seeing what we can do from a central bank perspective to facilitate those payments, because at the end, we should not forget that to have final settlement, the central bank of the receiving country or the sending country need to have a kind of agreement. This is very clear. So those are things that we are trying to facilitate. And last but not least, SMEs were also mentioned. We are in a world now where liquidity is not, there is not too much liquidity around. So people need liquidity to make transactions for growth, for the work and so on. And here, what we cannot accept, and here I think that we should promote from a central bank perspective, but from a regulatory point of view, that money is flying around for 3 or 4 days. People need this money as quick as possible. And in this respect, we are speaking now, the central banking community, about something called instant payments. I can send emails to you, Sultana, and you will get it in 2 seconds. If I send you money, you will not get it in 2 seconds. Why? And this is something that, again, the central banking community, together with the market, with credit institutions, with payment institutions, non-banks, whatever you want to call them, can do something to facilitate those kind of things. So this is what we can bring to facilitate more development in this field.
Thank you, Paco. Be ready, because I see a couple of questions there for you. Please,
thank you. In Bangladesh Central Bank, Bangladesh Bank already worked with the non-financial institute, banks, and microfinance institutes, all the things I have already mentioned. Bangladesh government is playing active role in encouraging inward flow of remittances. Government is awarding non-resident Bangladeshis with CIP. CIP means commercially important persons. Bangladesh Bank has also introduced award for top remitters. So we encourage the remitters. Bangladesh government is encouraging them to place their savings in Bangladesh in different investment schemes. Presently, investment windows available in Bangladesh are wage earner development bonds, Taka bonds, US dollar investment bond, US dollar premium bond, portfolio investment in stock exchanges in Bangladesh, purchase of primary shares under NRB, non-resident Bangladeshi quota. So, we encourage the remitters to remit more money. With regards to export of manpower, Bangladesh government is trying to explore export market through government to government agreement. Because you know that there are something happening, so we try to government agreement. Already with Malaysia, our government already is in an agreement. To be more efficient in the remitter services, Bangladesh Bank will accommodate changing environment. We are changing, we use technology, and recently we supervise all the remittances, that is export, import, invisible receipts, payments, and wage earner remittances also, and through online and real time. We developed a software, and the bank branches give a report or the remittance report to Bangladesh Bank, and we monitor every time. So I think it will help us. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. So we can now open, maybe starting to address a couple of questions that we have received from the audience. A couple are already specific to, but I would like to start with the questions that are more related to the oversight and regulation. And I mean, for once, I will join the panel to address maybe one of them. I think what we have discussed today, when we talked about the harmonization of the legal framework, is very important to adopt a functional approach to the provision of payment services. If we adopt an institutional approach and we try to regulate the different players differently, then it is going to be much more difficult to catch up with innovation. But if we define what a payment service provider is supposed to do, it doesn't really matter if the service is provided through one technology or through one scheme. It is important that we define the space. And we at the World Bank have been working with many countries to try to explore this functional approach. And I think that, in a sense, the EU Payment Services Directive is an example of that approach. So I think it is possible to regulate well and to catch up with innovation. There will always be a certain lag between, let's say, the regulator and the innovators, but possibly a proper regulation will reduce that lag. Now let's see, Paco, if you can address the question of what can European authorities do to improve transfers from Europe to non-European countries?
These questions came when I was speaking, and in fact, I think that the first one I addressed it. What we try to do, as we say before, we are running the large value payments for Europe, which is target. This is one thing. And here I can tell you we have links with some central banks around the world. But this is not enough, very clearly. And this is why I mentioned before the CPMI, the Committee of Payment Market Infrastructure of Basel, the BIS, part of the BIS, a committee of the BIS, where we are trying to see indeed how we can improve these kind of things. And we are discussing which are the steps we need to take. We are even speaking about how to facilitate instant payments. Don't tell, please, that the representative of the European Central Bank in Milano has indicated that we have a solution. We don't have a solution, but we are thinking about a solution. What we can do in the different layers, what we can do from a settlement perspective, which we have an important role to play, but also maybe from a clearing perspective, what we can do to facilitate this. So I think this discussion is taking place now at the time being, and I if there is someone, I made a photo before of this because I want to send it to my colleagues of the CPMI to show that in this forum, people is asking for these issues to be addressed at global level. And I think that is very important. So we are working on it. This working group on retail payments of the CPMI was established only a few months ago. We are starting to work on it, but I think that we have a role to play as authorities and as central banks.
Thank you, Paco. Corinne, do you want to address the very tricky question?
It's a very specific question. I'm not sure I have right now the answer. Probably my financial authorities do have the answer. Of course, what are we talking about when we talk about full transparency? In that case, it might reflect the necessity to have also information for combat illicit transfer. I'm not sure I am in the right position to answer. If we talk of another topic, which is transparency, then from my perspective for development, what we are trying to do right now in France is to develop a new methodology in order to have more information from the different kind of operators of transfer, because we want to have information not only on cost but also on the volume, and because we want to have a clear idea on how each corridors are working. This is very important, and because then we could have priority action on a very demanding corridors. That is very important also to have this harmonization of data on different corridors in order to, again, maximize our efforts in enabling environment, because this is a key issue for us.
Thank you. I don't know if any of you wants to comment on the de-risking debate. I mean, we heard from the G20 presidency that de-risking is very much at the center of the discussion, and I think we will discuss about it in other panels in the forum. But I don't know if there is any appetite to talk about de-risking here. I just don't want to skip the question, but I don't know if anybody has anything to add on that. I mean, we are, as it was mentioned, there is a survey that is going on. And probably I should take this opportunity to ask those of you that are in the position to contribute to the survey to do it. My colleagues are trying to lobby for you to give us the information in order to make policy actions. We need to know the size of the phenomenon. Very often it is reported that there are issues of accessing the payment infrastructure through accounts. But I don't think we have a real sense of the size, and we need to document it much more in much more detailed way. Let me see if we can open the floor. Of course, these questions were received from you. I don't know if Pedro, if we are in the position to open the floor to make it a little bit more lively. Okay, so we have a few minutes if you want to intervene either with a question to the panelists or with a comment in the spirit of the forum, please do so. There is a question there. We should probably be able to. Yes. Please. Do we have microphones? Okay. The microphone is coming.
Thank you very much. My name is Íñigo Moré. Congratulations to the organizers and to the speakers for this very interesting conference. A very, very short question, that is Bitcoin. Last week, New York issued the first rules for getting a license to deal with Bitcoin cryptocurrencies that are a means to transfer money fast and cheap, of course, in a way that technology has enabled very recently and in conditions that are really different than the ones used by other mechanisms. California is expecting to issue also a license or rules for licensing Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies within next month. Well, it is quite clear that America is going to deal with this. Is there any plans in Europe from the European Central Bank perspective to regulate or to assume this new technological reality? Is there any plans for from receiving countries like Bangladesh regarding remittances? Has the World Bank any policy regarding these new cryptocurrencies? Thank you.
Thank you, Inigo. I can tell you that to start that we have created, let's say, a forum for discussion of this phenomenon within the context of the CPMI World Bank Retail Payments Forum. So if any of you is interested to join the discussion on virtual currencies, we have created a community of practice, as we call it, a forum to discuss it. So contact me, and I will add you or others to the mailing list. But let's hear from the central banks here if they have anything to add.
The ECB was, I believe, the first central bank which made a report on virtual currencies. It's a long report, but I can tell you the conclusion of the report, impact of virtual currencies is less than marginal at the time being. So from a monetary policy perspective, not an issue. But one of the main findings of the report is that the technology behind virtual currencies should not be ignored. This decentralized ledger, as they call it, where we go from a centralized world to a decentralized world, should not be ignored. We were the first ones writing this report. Don't read all the report because it's quite too technical, but the executive summary, 2 pages, I think that is very easy to understand and very clear. And what we saw afterwards is that there have been a lot of developments. Bank of England, Central Bank of Canada, investigating, again, what I mentioned before, the technology behind. So I think that from a central bank perspective, and not only in the field of securities, not only in the field of payments, also in the field of securities, we have to investigate what can be the impact of this blockchain technology, decentralized ledger, whatever you want to call it, in the payments and securities business. So I think that is a very valid point, and I think that this will change the technology on payments and securities in the next years quite dramatically.
Are you discussing at the central bank in Bangladesh Bitcoin, virtual currencies, or you see it as too far?
I'm also too far because Bitcoin is not promoted. We not encourage Bitcoin till now.
Okay. Any other? Maybe there is time for a couple of questions, more questions. Here there is. Okay, so we take from here and then one here in front.
My name is Andy Rene. I'm from a company called HaitiPay. And the question is addressed to Mrs. Corinne Brunon-Meunier. It's referring to a comment you made earlier. Oftentimes it is considered that foreign aid is less, between northern countries and southern countries, is less as far as value as the remittance. And there has been a very interesting development in the international development world about principle of having efficiency in the foreign aid sector with the Busan principles and treaties and so forth. For the international remittance, are there any methodology, as you referred to, are there any specific methodology that you have developed? Can you give us a little bit more details about how to ensure the efficiency of international remittance? because it considered as doing a parallel with the general international foreign aid principles that were developed and that are more advanced than what is going on in the international remittance sector. Could you give us a little bit more details on the specific methodology that the French government or European have done on that sector?
Okay, thank you for the question. You have rightly said that now, you know, the remittances are even as important as the flows of public aid. But the acknowledgement of this fact and the way this can have a profitable impact on development is quite new. And it's really a recent process in France, but in other countries, to know how to tackle this issue, not only to facilitate the transfer to families, but also to have an impact on development. And that's quite new. So we are, it's an ongoing process. We are, and as you are aware, there will be a very important conference in Addis in July on the financing of development. And of course, the question of remittances will be also discussed, because this is part of the overall tools for financing development. But again, this is quite new. What we are doing at our level, for example, with Senegal, we are trying to, again, put around the table all stakeholders. Because if, for example, with a remittance, a transfer of money to Senegal, to, let's say, a small town in Senegal, one migrant wants to participate to the creation of, let's say, a small firm, he has to understand where he puts his money. He has to understand the rule of the countries, where he can do physically the investment. So what does it need? He needs to talk with the authorities, and not only with his family, because if not, he will have some disillusion. And for example, in this program we have, which is called Mobilization of Flows of Solidarities, then we have put in place with the local authority of Senegal, Agence Française de Développement, our ministries, but also the diaspora, 300 projects of small enterprises. The average amount for each of these projects is around 25,000 euros, which is quite a lot. And many sectors are impacted, like, for example, agriculture or small trade, that kind of thing. You know, housing. And so on all these projects, some have already, well, not succeeded, but not many. Many are really doing well, because, again, we have organized, I myself attending those meetings, we have organized meetings with the Senegalese local authorities, with the national authorities, with the Association of Migrants in France, etc., etc. So they are sure of what they are, the migrants are sure of what they are doing when they are mobilizing those remittances in order to participate to a development project. But again, and we have had not long ago a restitution about all this project in Paris, and with the Senegalese representative, the Senegalese diaspora, and other diasporas like the Mali diaspora, Cameroon diasporas attending, just in order to see what we are doing. I must say this is very encouraging, but also I must say that you really have to work very in detail. It's not enough to say that you are going to help send transfer money from people, migrants in France, to another country and just build, a small school or a shop or everything. Again, you have to create around all the conditions. People in the country of origin, in the countries of sending of remittances, have to know the rules or regulation of the country, have to know how they can create jobs, what it means. They have to insert themselves in the formal economy. And it's also a point which is not always very easy because, as you know, in many African countries, the informal economy is the majority of the economy. But if you want to have access to finance, not only remittances, because you have to combine, then you have to enter the formal economy. Then you have to pay taxes. Then you have to know what are the regulations. So this is this ongoing work which try to, again, have everyone around the table and to create also confiance, you know, and because people have to be secure, you know, of what they are doing.
Mindful of the time, we take the last question.
Okay, thank you for all the panelists. My name is Anjani. I'm from National Board of Placement and Protection for Migrant Workers in Indonesia. I got two questions. The first one is basically the same with the previous one. Because of the phenomenon of illegal remittances for our migrant workers in the sending country, using retail shops or even personal to send money to Indonesia. In fact, we already gave financial literacy to them to use a formal financial institutions, but the fact that these illegal remittances provide a fast and cheap and easier to send money. So what policy shall be made basically for this? And then the second one, Indonesia has a dual supervision, which is the Financial Service Authority for banking and financial institution regulation and central bank for the payment system regulation. How the best practice for harmonizing these two? Thank you very much.
Oh, there is a lot in your questions, and let's see if we can address it quickly. I think probably to the first question, we have already elaborated on the importance of a clear legal framework. I think this is the point. I mean, to make sure that your legal framework is clear and proportionate, so that you don't have a lot of providers that are not covered by the legal framework. And also, cooperation among authorities is a complex issue. You don't need to be two different authorities to have difficulties to cooperate. At times, even within the same authority, there are different functions, and it is certainly a challenge. So I'm afraid that we will not be able to do justice to your questions, but I want to ask the panelists to contribute quickly.
I think there may be a coordination committee between the two authorities, and they can talk each other and find a way to harmonize the policy.
Yeah. We have this debate on the supervision issue. You are talking about the FSA and the central bank in Indonesia. We have the same debate, for example, in Germany. You have the BaFin, which is the supervision, and you have the central bank. Some makes develop the regulation from a macroeconomic point of view, and otherwise go to the point. There is a need of coordination there. And this coordination is happening. This coordination is happening in Europe. Of course, I discussed payment institutions. Payment institutions are regulated in some countries by the central bank, in other countries by the supervisory body. There is a need of coordination, as Madame Sultana said. I can say a little more difficult one.
So maybe we can then take Corinne.
Just one remark, because I hear illegal transfer. Let's be aware that, of course, we need regulation, we need harmonization, but we really need to convince people to maybe take formal channels. But for that, we need to educate, because we should not stigmatize by, in any way, migrants. They do what they have to do. They do it very often on a very difficult situation. And so it's the role of public authority to, again, give information, educate, have workshop, explain, and then, you know, little by little transform the way remittances are done, but in any way where it's, you know, we should never stigmatize in any way the way migrants are doing what they do, because it's for their family's sakes, and this is very important.
These are perfect concluding remarks. So I would like